Hey, by the way, tonight's game, New York wins that outright.
You know he's on top. Million subs, he never gonna flop. Out of Chicago, where the streets don't sleep. Betting on games, making cash real deep. Crystal ball for sports, he knows the lines. He's a sports aficionado, the money he finds. From football to basketball, he's always on point. Predicting winners never disappoints. He's got that hustle, that Chicago vibe. Making moves on the streets, cash on the side. With E, you know it's always a bet. He's the king of the game, never forget.
Hello and welcome to the Etoft21sports Show for April 22nd. How is everyone doing? My name is Eric. I'm the man behind Etoft21sports. Absolutely loaded episode for you today. My boy Gino is this week's special guest. Him and I will give you a betting preview for the NFL draft. We will give you a team by team, alternate the picks, share any bets, that we are making, and that's about it. I'm really looking forward to picking Gino's head. But before we get into all that, I'd like to say thank you to the sponsor of the show, Just Out Tennis. If you're not, go to justouttennis.store. Use promo code ETOFT21. That way they know old Uncle Rico sent you. Also, go to Prop Hext. Use promo code ETOFT21. That way they know old Uncle Rico sent you, and you get 2% back on all bets. Make sure you check it out, guys. This peer-to-peer betting stuff, this is the future of betting. DraftKings, FanDuel, that stuff is all gone. We're going to be going to this peer-to-peer stuff, and that's going to be more of the future of it. It seems like Gino is having some technical issues. He will be here in a little bit. So let's jump right into the draft. Obviously, the Titans are on the board with the first pick. No secret what the Titans. Oh, Gino is back. Gino.
Sorry about that. We had a little technical difficulty, but I'm ready to rock, man. I'm all draft prepped and ready to go back and forth with you, my friend.
All ready to go. I was just saying how Gino is doing some work over at drf.com. Make sure to check that out. They have some great sports book bonuses, articles. He's posting some articles. He had 2 NBA bets today. So any day there's an NBA game, check it out because he is writing what he's betting. And they have some great sports book bonuses. Let's jump right into it. The Tennessee Titans are on the board. What do you think they are going to be doing, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty chalky towards the start of the draft. I feel like just looking at some of your bets maybe that you had and kind of hearing you talk about it, you kind of feel the same way. Seems like the biggest lock is at number 1 with Ward, Cam Ward to the Tennessee Titans. We know they need a quarterback. We haven't really heard anything much about the other quarterbacks with Sanders or with Dart. For them, just getting their guy at least will kind of give them a few years to understand if that's the quarterback they want to go with. So I got to say, I just wasn't really too high on any of the quarterbacks in this year's draft as necessarily being like an all-pro franchise QB. I think of the bunch, Ward is probably the most ready right now to go in and start. So I'm going to go Ward.
I'll be honest, I'm not really a Cam Ward guy.
Me neither.
You know,
I think that's what they're going to do, though.
Yeah, and it's kind of stinks. And I always hate, like, I don't hate, but stuff like this, it's always kind of like, what is the team going to do? Not like, what would you do?
Exactly, right.
Browns are an interesting pick. One of the big rumors going around that I heard was that they could actually make a trade here with a team that is hosting the draft, the Green Bay Packers. I don't think, though, that the Packers, with their history, would trade 3 draft picks to move up for Hunter here or Carter. So, I mean, I think this is just going to be Travis Hunter going here at the second pick. My eyes, the best player in the draft.
Yeah. And I think with Cleveland, and with the Giants and like both of the teams coming up, who you just picked for Cleveland for Hunter, that's who I would have gone. And then for the Giants coming up with pick 3, like you just don't think that it doesn't feel like they value Sanders or Dart all that much to where they would want to pick them this high. I kind of understand what you're talking about. Like I could actually see one of these teams maybe trading down a little bit later in the first round because they could still probably get whoever they wanted as a quarterback later in the first round too. But I'm just going to say that the Giants sit here and pick Carter, which is I think what a lot of people are assuming they're going to do. The edge from Penn State gives them like a real nice presence on the defensive front there. So pretty chalky 1, 2, 3. I think this is how most people have it going.
And the interesting thing is you get Carter. Now do you move on from Thibodeau? Because Thibodeau is going to be on his rookie contract that is coming up.
Yep.
Do you look to re-sign him? What do you look to do with Thibodeau? Or
it gives you some options, right? Like you can make a trade if it just, at least you have the guy on the rookie contract now, or you want to double up. Maybe you like the way that the two of them play together this year. So I think it just gives you some options. And then later, if they want to come into the first round, or if they see who falls down out of the first round, they can go try to get a quarterback. But they kind of went with the Band-Aid quarterback this year, right? They have 2 options of guys that they have. And I don't think either one of them is going to be the future for the Giants, but they'd probably be okay going into this year without like a young quarterback. But I do think if a Sanders or a Dart or one of them fell to them in like the second round or in a better spot, I could see the Giants making that pick.
I think this is an interesting pick because it wouldn't surprise me if a team does try to trade up for a Carter. Say,
yeah, I could see that.
The Lions, like, you know what I mean? Like
sure.
The Lions missing the draft pick, that
makes a lot of sense. You're right.
Said, hey, there's going to be fireworks. Does he make a draft?
You get that guy to pair with Hutch that you've been waiting for the last couple of years, right?
And I think it's important because the Lions are in an interesting position. They have a lot of contracts expiring. They're going to have to potentially look to move a Jameson Williams just because his contract's coming up in 2 years and are just not going to be able to afford him. Now the 4th pick is interesting. And, one of my bets here, and I'm just going to do it here, is I bet that Ashton Gentry would be the 4th pick at 10-1. Why is this?
So you think someone's trading up or that New England's going to take them?
I think that New England's going to take them. And my thought process is this. Everyone has just put in Will Campbell here, which is a great player, but we've never seen anyone with his arm length be a tackle. He is going to be a guard. Are you really going to take an interior offensive lineman with the 4th pick? That's the question. What has all the Vrabel's teams done? They always have a reliable run game. You lean on Derrick Henry. Ashton Gentry is some analysis, top player on the draft class. So with that being said, I think there's a possibility, and I'm looking right now, some books this is down to 5-1. So there is some money moving.
I like that.
So I'm going to say the Patriots are going to take Ashton Gentry at the 4th pick.
Because this is where if something like this happens in the draft where it's not Will Campbell at the 4th spot, now everybody's mock drafts start to go off.
Yeah.
Right. Because this is, I think everybody was kind of assuming Will Campbell, offensive tackle at the 4th spot. But since you go different with Gentry and I'm at the 5th spot now with the Jags, I don't think the Jags need Will Campbell. I think they're probably looking for other spots. I'll still probably roll with Mason Graham for the Jags. Highest graded interior defensive lineman in the country, top run grade. He was the number 8 pass rush grade by PFF. I think a real solid guy who can come in right now. They could put on their defensive front and get some help there. I was debating like trying to get a playmaker, but I'm still going to go with the defensive line and with Mason Graham in the 5 spot for the Jags.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. And honestly, I wouldn't see you surprised if Gentry drops here. I think you go to 5.
I agree too. See, this was the one where I saw some steam starting to build up about him going here. But I absolutely think he's going to be gone before 6, right? Because if he drops to the Raiders where you're making the pick, they're going to pick him.
Yeah,
he might be gone before that.
I haven't gone well before that. I don't think he makes it here. This is a tough pick for the Raiders. I don't think they're going to go with with an offensive lineman here. Their offensive line is pretty stout. Defensive line, I think it would be a little bit of a stretch if they were going to look to take a defensive lineman here. So with that being said, they play in a division with Mahomes and Herbert. I think they are going to go to, cornerback. I think they're going to take Boren from Texas. I think that,
and they have a couple different quarterback options they can go with, right? But I think the spot of cornerback, Will Johnson is another one that was like a popular pick in that spot. But I think if Genty's not there, then I think you're going to go cornerback. I completely agree with you. Think about the division, who you're going to be playing against. You want someone that's going to help you slow those guys down for the next few years.
And I think it just makes all the sense. You know, their back four, their defense was brutal. Obviously, up front, it's not that bad with what they have up front. They did have a good defensive line if people just stayed healthy with Crosby and company. So I think they need to start battling that back four. So I'll go with a DB. Now you have the Jets here. Who do you have the Jets taking?
Yeah, I think there's two spots. And if you're the Jets right now, the way that the board has fallen, I think you're really happy because the two guys that I sort of had on my big board for the Jets in this spot that I were looking at were Tyler Warren, the tight end, or offensive line Membu. So I think those were the two spots the Jets were looking at. I'm going to go with Tyler Warren, the tight end for the Jets. I think that's someone that they could go to, a young tight end. We're starting to see these really, really prolific tight ends. He's someone who can help them blocking as well as be a prolific receiver. So I'm going to go at the 7 spot, tight end Tyler Warren.
I actually made this bet. I actually got Tyler Warren at, I believe it was plus 320 to be the pick here. Look, he's one of the best prospects in the draft. Jets obviously need another player, Waker. This year's wide receiver class isn't as deep. Warren is a better playmaker than the other wide receivers on the board. Offensive defensive line are pretty deep. I think they're just going to go to a playmaker. And we need to remember Aaron Glenn is their DC. And what did Campbell do? He took Laporta really early in his tenure, so that way there's that underneath blanket. When you have a quarterback like Justin Fields, I think that's absolutely huge. So I bet Warren at plus 320 to.
And I think you have another bet on the next one too, right? Number 8 on the next team.
Well, see, this is to me when the draft kind of gets a little bit funky. Now, I said we could do trades, and I think this is where a trade happens. Okay. Now, one of the bets you have is this.
Yep.
Why don't you tell everyone why you like this?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at where the Steelers are right now, what we're hearing about Aaron Rodgers too, he was one of their only real options out there to go get a starting QB. They don't have very many options. And I think looking at the board, after Ward goes, they can have kind of their pick of either Shedeur Sanders or Dart if they make the trade up. If they just sit where they are, I think one of them will probably drop, but I would not be shocked at all to see something like this happen, to see them make a trade to try to move up to get who they have as their maybe number 2 quarterback on the board, whether it be Sanders or Dart for them. I love this because I think let's say they don't make the trade, right? Mm-hmm. But let's say that maybe at the 9th pick, New Orleans takes a quarterback. Then I think that puts a little bit of pressure on Pittsburgh to really feel like you want to grab your guy. I think they'll even down to Milroe. But I feel pretty confident that they're going to try to lock in someone because they really haven't had that quarterback since Roethlisberger that they felt good about. I like them there, and you're going to kind of piggyback on that and maybe have the Steelers trade up here.
Yeah, I have the Steelers trade up. Obviously, I also look at it like this, like with the Panthers, what positions do the Panthers need?
A little bit of everything, right? Like a couple big spots, right?
Like with the stuff they need, they can get later in the draft.
Wide receivers, there's not really any top 10 wide receivers on the board, right?
And with how they're doing it, they need they need to add talent because they gave up a lot. We need to remember they gave up a lot for Young. So
you're kind of trying to even things out here, right? You go back down the draft, you get some extra assets, like another pick or 2 in the draft.
Yep. They need talent. So I'm just going to have them take Sanders here. That way the Steelers, like you mentioned, they jumped ahead of the Saints. They can have their pick between Dart, Sandals, Miro, whatever quarterback is their highest.
Yep.
They're not rushing it. But with what Tomlin said about Sanders, I think that's the play. So
yep.
I have Sanders going 8. You have the Saints here.
Yeah, and you know what? Because Pittsburgh moves up, puts a little pressure on a Saints team now that we just found out about, 2 weeks ago, that Carr's going to be done for the year. Not going to be playing this year. He got injured. So now this Saints team, as a team that they weren't built very well over the last few years. They got old kind of quickly, and they didn't have a whole lot of cap room. So there are some of these teams that need a young, like, quarterback on a rookie contract because they can't afford to go pay a quarterback a bunch more money. I think the Saints, seeing that Sanders went, I actually don't think that bothers the Saints all that much. From what I've been hearing and reading too, they've been kind of high on Jackson Dart. I think we get the Saints drafting their quarterback right now. I think they draft Dart, number 9. So in a draft that didn't look like we were going to have that many quarterbacks go early, a few of these teams start putting pressure on one another, and now we've already had 3 quarterbacks go in the top 9.
Yeah, I like this one too. You got the Saints to draft the quarterback at plus 290. You also bet Dart under 25.5. I bet Dart pick 9 at plus 600.
I love that.
So yeah, I just think I always do my little draft rankings. I actually have Dart higher. I think he's a little bit more mobile than people give him credit for. He can push the ball down the field, and he kind of fixed the Kellen Moore system better. So we are to the Chicago Bears. I live in the Chicagoland area. Bears are getting a lot of buzz. Obviously, they need a running back. They need a defensive line. They need a safety. It's interesting here because Hampton is on the board, and people forget that Swift was in Detroit, and they traded him away when Ben Johnson was the OC. Do they make a move here for Hampton? Do they draft Hampton here? That means there would be 2 running backs going off the top 10. I don't think they're going to do that. I think that's too much heat. But what I think they are going to do here, which is a little bit off the beaten path, and that's what I do, I think they're actually going to go to a tight end.
I like this.
Everyone had them taking an offensive lineman, and look, I get it. You need to protect Fields. I understand it. But they lost Allen, big-time weapon for Williams underneath. Why not draft a tight end?
Who can do a little bit of both, right? Who can block and get you some and catch some passes and spread the field for you a little bit.
Yep, give Williams that underneath option. And we need to remember the Ben Johnson offense is all filtered into the middle with pre-snap motion. That's why Laporta and Brown had such big seasons. They already have more at the slot. I don't think Clement is that quote-unquote featured tight end. I think they're going to draft the
Michigan tight end.
The Michigan tight end, Loveland, here to be the Sam Laporta. So we're going to go Colston Loveland to the Chicago Bears. I actually bet the Bears to draft a tight end. What was my price on that? Plus 300. Next, we have your favorite team in the world, the
49ers.
49ers, my friend.
And this is going to look like a way different 49ers this year, right? Like, they're not going to have as many of the big playmakers, traded away Debo. Like, they're not going to be quite as prolific on defense. They had a bad year last year. So I think for this team, where they've really struggled over the last couple of years, Eric, it has kind of been a Band-Aid because Shanahan's a very, very good offensive schemer. Their offensive line has not been strong. They really haven't, like, overall. I think the type of player that would fit really well for San Francisco would be like a right now plug and play offensive lineman like Will Campbell, who dropped all the way down here, right? He's still on the board right now. I think they probably look and go, we did not expect Will Campbell to be here. I was sort of looking at a couple different offensive linemen or maybe even an edge for San Francisco. But I think because we've had a few trades, we've had some movement, and Will Campbell's still on the board, I think they go get an offensive lineman right now that they can plug and play that will help them. So I'm going Campbell at pick 11 for the 49ers.
And he can also play guard, which I think he's going to play, which is definitely one of their needs. So he can play
move around multiple versatile spots. Absolutely.
So I think Will Campbell is great. Now, this is the interesting one for me. So the big rumor is the Dallas Cowboys love Jameson Williams.
Okay. So, and that instead of maybe drafting a wide receiver, do they go get a wide receiver through a trade?
Do they throw some draft picks at the Lions to get Jameson Williams, which is a possibility here, which I think is probably going to happen. That's what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to throw some draft picks at Jameson Williams because, like I said, Holmes has done such a great job drafting that all these guys' contracts are coming up at the same time. So they need to do a good job filtering in this young talent. I think that I don't think they're going to go to the running back position. I think it's too early to take Hampton. I think they're going to go offensive line, and I think they're going to take, I can't even pronounce his name, the kid from Missouri. Membu, because he's a top talent. He can play multiple positions on the offensive line.
A lot of people like had him go into the Jets early, right?
Yeah, they can't allow Prescott to get hurt again. I think they're going to draft offensive line. And we need to remember when the Cowboys had their run, what did Jerry do the best? He attacked the offensive line, and that's what was solid. That is what set up Zeke to have all these years. So I'm going to take Membu from Missouri. Now we have the Dolphins, my friend.
Yeah. Looking at a couple spots, I was probably going to go with one of the offensive linemen that was still around, but a couple good offensive linemen were picked right in front of them. For Miami, it seems like Ramsey's on the way out, and they're going to have to replace Javon Holland at safety. I'm looking at the cornerback from Texas, Barron. I think that's
already off the board. He's already off the board.
Oh, okay. So you picked him. Where did you pick him?
I picked him for the Raiders. He's up for the Raiders. So we
okay. So sorry, I did not have that one up. So now the next guy on my board was offensive lineman Simmons or Kelvin Banks Jr. I was between the two of them for Miami because those were my biggest needs for Miami, offensive line and then in the secondary. So I think they have to do a better job of protecting the quarterback here. So let's go offensive line and let's go. I'll go Simmons here for the offensive line pick for the Dolphins.
All right, we got the Colts coming to the board. Colts are probably heartbroken here. They definitely wanted Warren, which is a little bit depressing for them because they definitely need a tight end. They definitely need to give either Richardson or Jones some weapons. They need a pass rusher. The defense was absolutely a nightmare last year. So with that being said, what I think they are going to do is I think they're going to go edge pass rusher. Top edge pass rusher on my board after Carter is Green. So I'm going to have him take Mike Green from Marshall, try to create a little bit of pass rush, help them get to the quarterback a little bit. Now we have the Falcons. What do you got? What do you got the Falcons doing, my friend?
They got to go defensive front. We've been talking about this with the Falcons for so long. They just have not been able to put any pressure on the quarterback. So looking around the guys that were here, I think they probably are a little frustrated that you took Mike Green, who was someone that they would have been probably targeting. Guys that are on their radar. I think I'm looking at Walker, the edge from Georgia, Jalon Walker. I think he could be someone. So I'm going to make that the pick. If he was taken, I would have gone with someone like a James Pierce. I'm looking for edge for them. That was absolutely what I was targeting. There were 3 or 4 guys there available. So yeah, let's go with Walker, the edge from Georgia.
Which brings us to the Cardinals. If the board breaks the way we do and Johnson from Michigan falls all the way down to the Cardinals, I think that
Milo wanted to make a pick a second ago. He was walking in to say hello.
I think
okay, buddy.
The Cards will be doing a backflip if Will Johnson falls this much to pick 16. And
my gosh.
And then get to who some people have as one of the best corners in the league. I think they're actually going to be doing a backflip. So I'll take Will Johnson here.
And honestly, my last pick, I kind of feel pretty similar with Atlanta that I do with Cincinnati. Like they need some like presence on the defensive line to pair with Hendrickson. They need some help there. So Mike Green's already gone. I think you can look to, let's go a couple that were on my board. I'm going to go with the interior defensive lineman. We're going to go Kenneth Grant, the run stuffer here, because I think that will help them kind of complement. You have a guy who's going to help you kind of clog things up a little bit and stop the run. And then you've got to complement with Hendrickson there too. So I'm going to go with Grant at pick 17 for the Bengals.
All right, so we're going to go with Kenneth Grant here to pick 17. Pick 16, we got Seattle. Definitely a new regime in Seattle. They lost DK Metcalf. They brought in Cooper Kupp. They got Jackson Smith-Njigba. Offensive line has kind of been an issue for them. So has their defensive line. But they're kind of the strengths of this draft, the interiors, if you will.
Yeah.
Walter Nolan is a beast. And if Walter Nolan is on the board right now, what I think is going to happen is I think we're going to see a team definitely look to trade up with Seattle. And as crazy as it sounds, I think the Baltimore Ravens, just because their defense wasn't as stout as it was in years past, I think the Ravens are going to trade up. So I'll just do this right here. Boom. I think the Ravens trade up, and I think the Ravens are going to take Walter Nolan for the defensive front just to add to that, because like everyone just associates good defense with the Ravens. That front four wasn't as good as it was in years past, and you need someone to kind of clog up that middle. Two, when you play the Mahomes, the Burrow, the Lamar Jackson, you need someone that can clog up the middle and kind of stop what they want to do, running the ball and get in their face and everything. So I'll take Walter Nolan.
So next up for me is the Bucks. They're at pick number 19, and kind of looking and reading through what would make the most sense for the Bucks. I'm looking, and there weren't a ton.
Here's my question for you. Okay, now I'm just throwing this out. McMillan's still on the board. We've had no wide receivers taken. Could you see someone trading up if the board kind of breaks this way?
Absolutely. This is what I was going to say, because I think Tampa could be the type of team who, like, they need a few things. I was looking at linebacker, but I don't know if that really fits in the spot where they are. Absolutely think a team who could use a wide receiver could possibly trade up here. So who would be the team that you think would maybe make the trade?
The Chargers.
Let's do it. Let's trade the Chargers up to 19 to Tampa. And then they need that wide receiver. We've been talking about it for a while. I'll give them McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, who's more of a bigger presence. Not necessarily my favorite of the receivers on the board. I kind of like some of the other guys who I think have a little bit better yards after the catch type, but I think he would be someone they would go to. I think he would be a nice presence to pair with Herbert. So yeah, let's go wide receiver there at pick number 19 to the Chargers, and we'll go McMillan from Arizona.
And I think we're going to see a lot of trades like this just because Todd McShay, I was listening to him, and he said if anyone can get a perfect first-round draft, he'll give $1 million to.
Yeah. This year there's a lot of, like, I think I heard somebody describing it the way that they said was the players that are possibly the highest ceiling players are not perfect. They've got a lot of things you can poke holes in. The more solid, like, plug-and-play now players are probably guys that aren't going to be, like, all pros down the line. So it's kind of what that weird – draft where are you picking the player right now who can come in and help you that might not have as high of a ceiling, or are you going to look for the guy who might be the awesome in a few years, but there's a lot of questions about them.
And I mean, the wide receiver just fits for McMillan. I mean, it just fits. And if it goes like this, it's going to be perfect. And we speak about fits. the Peyton offense is they need a running back, someone that can catch the ball of the field, someone they can lean on. Obviously, they did take the kid from Notre Dame last year, but he could not hold on the ball. He could not stay in the backfield. You have Hampton here, the kid from North Carolina. I actually bet that the Saints would draft a running back. I believe it is at plus 110, I believe. Yes, plus 110. I think this is just the pick that makes the most sense because they need a running back. He can catch it out of the backfield, and all the Peyton systems have been dual running backs. So, I mean, Audric Estate, I was pacing on his name, him and Hampton, great 1-2 punch. Now we have the Panthers. I did bet the Panthers to draft a wide receiver, but this is your pick with them. What do you think they're going to do here, my friend?
Yeah, I would do that. I think that's why they were fine trading down, because when you look at the board, there really weren't any top 10 players on the board this year that were wide receivers. There were only a few wide receivers that were kind of projected towards the top of the first round. So I think for them, they're in a nice spot right here. They could pick the wide receiver that they like best. That's probably Matthew Golden.
Yeah.
I think from Texas here. Because he's another one of those players who has a higher ceiling than someone maybe like a Egbuka, who I don't know if they'll be a number one. So yeah, I think I'll go with Golden.
And I mean, if the Bucks, they're going to go down here. Obviously, they could take Campbell here to shore up the middle of the field, but that back four was just absolutely brutal. You pair Malachi Starks with Winfield in the back four for Tampa. Now you're building something, starting to solidify it if Winfield to stay healthy. So I think Starks, who's fallen down the board a lot in our draft at pick 22, makes all the sense in the world for them. Now we're at Green Bay at pick 23. PFF has them needing an edge, a cornerback, or a wide receiver. What do you think they do here, my friend?
Yeah, I think if Maxwell Hairston's still on the board right here, we go grab him at cornerback, because he's someone who you could have to replace Jair Alexander as he kind of ages out a little bit. Maxwell Hairston has that man-to-man skill set that I think they like. So that's who I would look at pick 23.
I like that one a lot. Now, there's certain teams that I had circled that I could see move back because their lack of draft capital, and the Vikings are one of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's say
because they only have 4 picks in the draft this year, so for them trading back a little bit would be nice. Get yourself an extra pick or 2 here.
And just hear me out here. I know it sounds crazy. But what team still needs a starting quarterback? The Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see the Browns, Giants. This is where one of those teams would trade back in, right?
Yeah, this is where we could see one of them trading back in. I don't think the Giants will do it because the Giants have Wilson.
The 2 backups and Jameis, right? They got the 2 of them.
So, I mean, I'll just throw something like this here. Boom. Boom. And then.
So you go, who do you pick? Is that Milroe you would go next, or?
Milroe fits the system great.
Right. And he's like a high upside player for them, where if you're the Browns and you're going to get out of the Deshaun Watson contract disaster, you need a player like this to hit, right? And a young guy to be like your version of hopefully Daniels or someone like that.
And I mean, the thing is like DeBoer just wanted him to stay in the pocket. That's not who Jalen Milroe is. He needs to run around. He needs to make plays. I think he's going to be great in the league. I think he'd fit great in the Stefanski system. I think this is going to – Stefanski knows he can do a little bit more RPO, because that's kind of what his based offense is with when you bring in Milroe. So I'm going to have him take Jalen Milroe. He's plus 140 to be a first-round draft pick. So, I mean, if you're a Browns fan and they go in and they get Milroe and Travis Hunter, you got to be feeling pretty good.
Absolutely.
Next up on the board, we have the Houston Texans. Texans need a wide receiver and offensive line help.
Yeah.
Where do you think they're going, my friend?
I think still on the board. We still have Kelvin Banks from Texas, the offensive tackle. Yep. I think that would be, if he fell to them, that would be a great, they'd feel really good about that because they could use help on the offensive line for sure. They traded away Laramie Tunsil, so they need help at tackle and interior offensive line. I think that's a really good fit there with Banks from Texas.
I think it makes all the sense in the world. The next one here, with how this is going now, look, the Rams. I'm not that high on the Nakuka Devontae Adams tandem. I think they definitely need a little wide receiver. I think Tutu Atwell's contract's coming up. Definitely need to throw someone in there. But I'm not really in love with any other wide receiver fits here. Their tight end, it would be a stretch for them to take one here. Offensive line is deep. Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama, I have him very high on my board. If he drops here to your Rams, this is going to help solidify the middle of the field, help rebuild that defense. So I think they're going to take Campbell from Alabama. Now we got the Seahawks, my friend.
Yeah, so Seattle here, and just they traded down, and I think looking at what Seattle could still use where we're situated, I could see them drafting an Egbuka right here. If he's the wide receiver that they still have on their board, I could see them going and getting him or whichever receiver they have projected the highest. You know what I'm going to do? I actually like better Luther Burden, and I'm going to go get him, and I'm going to make him my pick for Seattle because by trading down, they got themselves a little bit extra, so they can go kind of take a swing on their guy, hoping that he is a higher ceiling player than maybe Egbuka, who I think is going to be like a number 2 wide receiver. Hopefully you can go out and maybe, you can go get yourself a number 1 wide receiver here. So we'll go a little bit farther down the board with a player that they like maybe and had higher, a little bit ranked a little higher than some of the other wide receivers there.
And then one of your bets was Seahawks to draft a wide receiver at
exactly
plus 340. Now I bet the Lions to draft a wide receiver at plus 1,500. Now, what I've been told is they love Golden and that they're going to look to trade JMO for more draft capital. Now, I saw this at plus 1,500. When I got that intel, I bet this one right away.
Yeah.
But honestly, with how this board is transpiring, you got some great edge rushers still on the board. They need to pair somebody with Hutch. If James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee is still on the board, I'm doing an absolute back.
Yeah. Pierce Jr., Mike Green, if those guys are around, you're taking one of them, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure. We had Green going a little bit earlier though, so I'll take Pierce here.
Yeah.
Lions.
Yep.
Next we have the Washington Commanders.
And I played like a kind of a little fun long shot prop on this one. I feel like because they just traded for Debo, a lot of people will kind of assume that they're done at the wide receiver position, but they actually have 4 of their wide receivers this year that are on expiring deals. I could see them down here going and getting whoever they have of the best wide receivers available. So I just picked Golden, right? So this would be, for me, Egbuka, who could be someone that you keep as a young, nice piece moving forward, and you have him to pair with Daniels. I really like that. So I'm going to go Egbuka for them to draft a wide receiver that'll also kind of complement the way I'm handicapping the draft. And I think they could, if it wasn't a receiver, let's say both Egbuka and Luther Burden were off the board here, who I just picked not long ago. I could see them then going edge, best edge available. Someone like Stewart would be like in their range here, but I'm going to go with the wide receiver and I'm going to go with Egbuka.
Yeah, I like that. And for whatever reason, Ohio State's weird. They always line up their best wide receiver in the slot. For the life of me, I don't understand why the F they do it, and they did it with Egbuka. I think he's going to be an absolute stud at this next level. Now, we're here to the Buffalo Bills. Bills obviously need some defensive help here. A lot of good names still on the board. We got Amos. We got Nick Sorton. We got Stewart. I think they're going to go, though, Williams.
Tyleik Williams?
Malik Williams, the
Yeah.
edge transfer from Georgia,
Yep.
to help create some pressure. The McDonough defense is based on not blitzing. They need someone that can create pressure without blitzing. To me, this just makes all the sense in the world. It comes us to the Kansas City Chiefs here with pick 31. What say you with the Chiefs, my friend?
Yeah, a couple spots the Chiefs could use some help. Offensive tackle, I think in particular, or on the defensive line. Like mainly when you watch them in that Super Bowl game, where did they struggle? On the interiors, right? The part of the part of the teams and the team building that you harp on quite a bit. The offensive line, the defensive line. Looking where they are, I had Walter Nolan on my board. He's gone for a while. I had Josh Simmons on my board. He's gone for a while. I think you go Josh Conway Jr. for them. Offensive line there from Oregon, someone who I think will fit well with them. So help keep Mahomes protected a little bit. Let's go big man from Oregon.
And which brings us to the defending Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm all about taking swings in the draft. And
especially for a team like this, who is probably got the least amount of actual team needs of anyone in the NFL, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they could do some stuff here. I hear they really like the tight end Taylor's kid from LSU, but you can get him later. He's not a first-round guy. Who is the player that was graded out in the first round? Some had the best cornerback, obviously the second best DB behind Travis Hunter. My boy Ben Morris, but he's got a lot of questions around his hip injury, what is going on there. If the medicals come back good, I can see the Eagles taking a chance with him. They did take a chance with this Nolan Smith, who had some medical issues, and that worked out good. So I'm going to have the Philadelphia Eagles on pick 32 take Benjamin Morris. So there you have it. There is our draft. A couple
trades.
Obviously, I really don't think, and I think this third pick here, I could see the Giants making an unsuspectful move. I can see them doing a move. Obviously, if Gentry
trading down, maybe if somebody wants to get Carter.
It's trading down to someone
because they need a lot of help still too, right? They could maybe get another still guy on their big board, and then possibly even a quarterback. I keep mentioning quarterback, but you're right. They do have the two, so maybe they're not going to spend capital on a quarterback. Maybe that could be someone in the later where they get a backup type. But yeah,
or the Raiders could panic that the Jags or the Patriots are going to take
Gentry, right?
Gentry, and maybe they look to move up. And then can you imagine if Carter falls down to the Patriots?
Yeah.
That could open up a whole big thing. Definitely, we had Will Campbell fall a little bit. We had the offensive tackles fall. No offensive tackle taken in the top 10.
Yeah.
A little rare. We did have 3 quarterbacks with a down quarterback class, but it is a quarterback-driven lead. We had Jalen Milroe sneak in the first round. Interesting draft. And this is the fun stuff,
Because one pick, like 3 or 4, and then that changes the whole draft. Because everybody's kind of got 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of similar, even 5 and 6 with a lot of places are kind of even in that 5, 6. Then at 7, it's like the Jets with the tight end or offensive line. If we get a trade somewhere in the top 7 or 8, that's how everything shifts. Because right now it does look kind of chalky, but it's never just that way. There's always someone that panics the day of.
Well, let's remember I was at the draft 2 years ago. Unfortunately, I'm not going this year. But 2 years ago, we had what no one saw coming. We had the Texans have the first 2 picks.
Yeah.
Boom. Lions trading up and taking Jahmyr Gibbs. No one saw that coming.
Yeah.
Last
year, the string of quarterbacks, we knew there'd be a lot, but all of a sudden there were 6 quarterbacks taken.
Michael Penix Jr. going there's always just this stuff that's totally unexpected.
Because these people are human. as much as we look at all the projections, as much as we look at where they're supposed to go, when like rich guys or billionaires and people that own, or the GMs or coaches are sitting in a room, they have their egos. They all have individual things players or things they look for and like a little bit more, right? Like you and I, how often are we going through like a fantasy draft, and the players that are way higher projected than players that we draft, we leave out because we're concerned about injury or scheme, or maybe, like overall player attitude, things like that, right? Those are some intangibles that are also factored in when teams are making their draft picks.
It's just, how can I word this? Or if like someone rubs someone the wrong way, with all those stories about
in a meeting, right? In an interview,
all those stories about Stroud, like in the meeting with the owner of the Panthers, had ketchup on the steak or something like that rubbed him the wrong way. So I don't really know. This is an interesting time. I love this time of the year. Let's just kind of run through. So Gino bet dart under 25.5.
There's just enough teams, like we saw what happened. There are enough teams that need a quarterback that I could see one or two of them moving up. I think on a lot of people's boards, he's either the number 2 or the number 3 quarterback. We know Ward's going to go 1. So that leaves, 24 spots for him and Sanders to maybe be taken, I'm thinking. So I feel pretty good about either Pittsburgh or the Saints, who we know are pretty high on him now. What you did with Cleveland, where you could see them trading back in towards the end, like in the 20s somewhere, to try to snag a quarterback.
The Giants could too.
Yeah.
Or let's say the Saints take Sanders. Steelers could take him at 21.
Yeah.
Washington draft a wide receiver.
They got the 4 wide receivers on their roster that are expiring, including Debo, who they just traded for, and McLaren. So if they want to get a young guy, and then you keep one of those 2 and you pair them together moving forward, right? Along with Daniels, the Seahawks, what you did in this draft, you had them trade down, which I actually really like, because where they at pick 18, I think initially, Seattle. So for them, they're a young team and they feel like they need a lot, right? Go get another asset or 2, move down the draft a little bit, and then you get your wide receiver later in the first round, because there's not that, I don't think there's going to be a rush between teams to go look for different wide receivers in the first round here.
You also have Steelers to draft the QB.
Yep, talking about that one with Dart and where they sit.
Saints to draft the quarterback.
I'm thinking it's Dart or Sanders at pick 9.
I did Warren to the Jets at plus 320. Panthers to take a wide receiver plus 500. My thought process is this: Adam Thielen was their leading wide receiver.
Yeah.
Xavier Lorette, I don't think he's a true number 1. I think there's a couple guys here. I think McMillan has the upside where he potentially could be a number 1. Bears to draft a tight end plus 300. Again, makes sense. Get that underneath weapon for Caleb Williams. This is just, I'm buying the rumor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm buying the rumor here. Give me Lions to draft a wide receiver plus 1,500. Gentry pick 4, 10-1. I had Dart pick 9, 6-1. Ben Morris first round pick plus 950, and I forgot to put in the Broncos running back at plus 110. Again, look, these aren't full unit bets. These are just kind of pizza money type stuff to put it out there, because again, you're not betting on who you think the better player is.
You're betting on what
you think someone else thinks,
which is tricky, right? Yeah.
So, Gino, I'd like to thank you for coming on, talking some NFL draft. Why don't you tell everyone about DRF.com and everything you have going on there, my friend?
Yeah, you probably think of DRF and you think of horse racing, which is where we have most of our great information. You can get all the past performances, like the research and data, if you want to bet the races every single day. And right now, we're coming up on the Kentucky Derby. We're only a week and a half away. So if you want to start looking now, you can actually buy one of the Kentucky Derby packages, and they have all the horses who are going to be running in the Derby already set. So you can go handicap the Derby race basically right now. And then when they draw the races on Saturday night, all you have to do is make a few adjustments based on oh, this course was drawn inside, or maybe I'm going to make a couple changes. But you can watch all the replays. You can check like all of the charts and all that prep work. So go to drf.com, and they also have the new sports betting section. Erik and I did an NBA playoffs preview last week. I think we're going to be doing some stuff maybe weekly, where we'll check in like once a week, give out some plays for the weekend, and then come NFL season. What's cool about the whole section, Erik, is it gives you all the different sports books, and it gives you reviews on them, like what FanDuel has for more options versus DraftKings. So if you're a sports bettor out there, you can kind of go through, maybe you haven't looked at a bunch of the different sports books, but you can kind of shop around, get different promo codes and offers, look for the best lines. It's a really good resource if you just are trying to find where you can get the best value. Check it out there, drf.com. So what's Troy saying? Under 2.5 QBs first round?
Troy is under 2.5 QBs first round is his play. Thanks for everyone for chiming in. Your boy, I hate the Lakers. How about my Clippers, baby? I'll tell you what.
They've looked good. And Kawhi's game last night, unbelievable. Incredible. He's got like a little boost right now too. You can see that should be like a back and forth series, but I will give Kawhi all the credit in the world, because when he's at this level, I think a lot of us thought that he was done in this, ever getting back to this level, getting back to where he looks like on the court, like he's one of the 5 best players in the world.
And I mean, mentally, that was a tough spot too. I mean,
right?
Full transparency, I was on the Nuggets, and my thought process was I didn't trust the leadership of the Clippers, just because you lose a game basically on a Russell Westbrook 3 quick turnaround, having to play in altitude.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's Ty Lue right there, right? That's a good coach, getting them ready to rock and roll. And as much as we give a guy like Harden crap, he's been there. He's been around a lot. He steadies the ship, and he's done a great job for a guy like Zubac this year.
So appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll be back next week. My boy David, a.k.a. Better DP21, will be on, and we'll be talking a little MLB betting and NBA betting. Make sure to give Gino and DRF a follow. I'm going to be helping Gino out with a Kentucky Derby show.
Yeah,
we're going to record it next week. I'm not sure when it comes out, but I'll make sure I tweet it out to everyone out there. So looking forward to that. Best of luck. Your Lakers are looking good. Hopefully my -3.5 first half can close with the week I've been having. I don't know.
I had to pull out the Vujicic t-shirt jersey today to get some real good luck. So I was hoping the good energy with Sasha hitting those big free throws, maybe we could send it on over. So good start today.
How about my Pistons? How about
played really well.
Cade is coming into his zone, but Gino, I'll let you go on so you can watch the game. I appreciate you, and we'll talk to you, friend.